there, Candace Lowman here. Today, we're going to talk about paying your house off early. Is it a huge mistake? There's a big controversy out there about this. It really is a controversy with a very well-known institution for financial wellness that talks all the time about it. And they're going to review a video, and I'm going to review their review of the review of their review of this video review. So we're going to take a look at this review. We're going to see what this looks like. I've got some ideas of my own on this, and it's an interesting take on it. I can't say that I agree. I agree with some things. I don't completely agree, though, and there's a reason, because the math has to math. Let's just see what this is all about here. From a well-known institution that you're all going to recognize.
And so we found a video about mortgages, and we get a lot of hate for our take on mortgages, that you shouldn't have one. It's a hot take that you should pay your mortgage off, because then you can really live and give like no one else and build wealth. So let's watch this video, and I'll let you know my thoughts after.
Paying off your mortgage early isn't always a great idea. Let me show you why.
All right, let's stop there first off. Yeah, paying your mortgage off early is always a good idea. First off, it really is a good idea. It depends on how you got there that really counts. It's how you got there, because paying off your mortgage, especially as you're going up in age and you're investing and doing those things and you want to retire, having a house payment it sucks. It would suck. Let's just get that out there right now. And then we're going to go back to this. I just want to add that, though, because we're starting off on this thing. And you can see the look on his face. I don't know what that.
Let's say that you have a $300,000 mortgage at a 4% interest rate for 30 years. Your payment is $1,400. You have an extra $1,000 that you can use to either pay off your mortgage faster or invest. Let's look at what happens in both cases. If you use your $1,000 to pay off your mortgage faster, you'll pay off your mortgage in 13 years and save $120K worth of interest. Now start investing all of that $2,400. 17 years later, you'll have $1 million, assuming an average 8% return. Now let's look at if you invest the $1,000.
Let's look at this real quick. Okay, so 13 years, 17 years, in 30 years, you'll have $1 million. If I'm 30 years old, that's not a bad deal. That's really not that bad of a deal. The concept there isn't bad, but let's listen, because he's looking at this thing, taking notes, and I think you're going to be surprised by what comes out of this. So just keep listening here.
Instead of paying off your mortgage. Over the same 30 years, you'll pay $128,000 more in interest, but you'll have $1.4 million in investments. Paying off your mortgage early would cost you $300,000 in total wealth. That's a lot of money. Sure, you've saved a bit on interest, but you lost money in the long run. That's why it's so important that you understand the way personal finance actually works. That way you can crunch the numbers and choose the path that makes the most financial sense.
You catch that? The look on his face is how personal finance really works. That was epic. It's like, what? That's hilarious. That's overstepping. Honestly, that's way overstepping to say that's how personal finance works. It's way overstepping. His reaction is totally legit, totally legit on this thing. I just had to laugh though. Her math. I mean, it's not that it's not mathing, but. Yeah, let's listen. I'm going to be real interested. I'm going to agree and disagree with a few things that he's got to say too. It's going to be really interesting.
For you.
Oh, so that's how personal finance actually works. Oh my goodness. Well, if I had known that, I would have gotten to way more debt, because apparently you can make millions
exactly
by going into debt and staying in debt. Okay, a lot of numbers were thrown out there. You can ignore the numbers for now. It's too much to keep in your brain. I tried to write some of it down. It's just too much. But here's the deal. As a guy,
it's not too much. It's not too much. You threw out like a couple numbers. It's not too much, but that's okay. We're going to see how this works. I'm really interested to see his reaction to this. Very interested, because I don't necessarily agree with all of this particular finance person's stuff. There's a number of things that I think we need to be responsible versus just not addressing it at all. Take a listen.
Guy who paid off his house, and some people have said, well, that was a dumb thing to do. You should have invested the money. Listen, it's hard enough for me to sleep at night with everything going on in the world, but I sleep a whole lot better knowing my home is paid for and I don't owe anyone anything. And here's the thing. People come at us and go, well, you still have taxes and insurance, so you'll always have payments. You must be real fun at parties if that's how you think and talk to people. So when it comes to the mortgage, you're right. On paper, you can do better. If life works out perfectly for you and you magically have an extra $1,000 sitting around, which, news alert, most Americans don't because they're broke.
Okay, this is fascinating because these guys preach pay your house off. But now you're saying magically you don't have $1,000. How are you supposed to pay your house off early if you don't have $1,000? What can you do? I'm not disagreeing with what he's having to say. I'm just thinking, all right, now we're coming into a little bit of a controversy, a little oxymoronism with this. He's not an oxymoron, but this is an oxymoron to say, you can pay your house off early, but most Americans don't have money to pay their house off early. Well, which is it? How do we pay our house off early then? And why do you say we should do that if we don't have the money to do that? Again, devil's in the details here. Let's hear what he has to say next. It's getting interesting in here.
Then yes, on paper, if it works out perfectly and you get your exact return every single year and you get that exact mortgage scenario, sure, you could end up with a few $100,000 more. But the truth is 99.9% of Americans aren't doing that, will not do that, can't do that. They don't have extra money laying around. And if you think that if I did have extra money, it would all go towards investing because I'm such an astute investor.
Okay. So then if that is indeed the case, which I'm not disagreeing, how are you supposed to pay your house off early? If you're not going to save it, if you're not going to do it, if you're not going to put it towards this, then what is the magic bullet, the magic pill, the whatever that would make any of us think we could pay our house off early, which is what this particular show promotes, paying your house off early. It's funny that a lot of shows, your point of view works in your scenario. When someone else brings a point of view that infringes a little bit, your point of view that you just had may not work, but it works when it suits you or suits your opinion or suits what you're preaching. Oh, I don't know, sound a little hypocritical. Did I use the H word? The H word, hypocritical? Yeah, a little bit of hypocritical there. So I'll be quiet. I'll be quiet and we'll listen a little more.
You're also wrong because we know lifestyle creep happens, life happens, a vacation pops up, a wedding pops up, a funeral. Life just happens. HVAC goes out. And so what happens is the people that do that generally don't have an emergency fund, don't have extra money. And if they do, they're probably hanging out in Reddit threads, talking about how much Dave doesn't know about personal finance, which is.
Well, if that's the majority of Americans, then how do we fix that problem? I don't hear any answers here. I just hear criticism.
Is totally fine. You are entitled to your opinion. It is a free country, and you're entitled to have to be wrong. That's part of freedom. So to that point, here's what I'll say. That video is clearly geared towards younger people, which frustrates me because young people in their 20s are starting to fall for these traps, and they're starting to believe that debt is a tool to be leveraged, and you can create so much wealth by leveraging debt. And so to that I say, what if we didn't have payments and we invested the money? What would that turn into? How much life could we live in the meantime before retirement? Before we have $1.4 million, there's a lot of life in between, isn't there? We want to
listen, Linda. Get back to this because we just talked about the fact that most Americans don't have the $1,000 to invest. How are they going to get $1,000 to pay the house off then? Here's where these, those lines aren't connecting here, and I like the principles of what is preached as far as paying the house off, as far as having money in a slush fund or a backup fund, an emergency fund and all that. Not a slush, but emergency fund. If most Americans don't have $1,000, they're not going to be able to do that either. So how are they going to pay the house off if they don't have the money to invest or put somewhere? It just doesn't make any sense. Now you're being a little oxymoronish on what you're trying to say and what you're doing. So we'll keep going here and then we'll talk about it a little bit more.
Raise families. We want to send our kids to college debt free. We want to go on amazing vacations. We want to give generously. And what I have found is that payments in your life hold you back from doing all that in the meantime, over the next 30 years of your working life. And so that is why I advocate for paying off your mortgage early. And we've debunked many times the idea of you guys should hang on to your mortgage for the tax deduction. No, we debunk this all the time at our live events in Financial Peace University. You're trading $1 for a quarter. If you're keeping your mortgage around for the tax deduction because you want to pay your lender $10,000 instead of sending the IRS $2,500, that's just bad math. So all that to say, please stop making videos that are hurting young people. I want them to win financially. I want them to live a debt-free life, not only because of the financial side, but the psychological side, the spiritual side. We're seeing so much anxiety and depression with these younger generations, and a huge part of that is because of money fears, money problems, money issues.
I don't disagree with that. A lot of psychological stuff, a lot of depression, a lot of that, a lot of worries. I have adult and older teenage children, and so I can agree with that. However, again, where's the money going to come from to pay the house off? If we don't have the money for the 1,000 to invest or whatever, or to put onto the home, I'm not hearing a solution here. I'm just hearing some criticism. I don't like that. If you're going to present this, present at least a little tidbit of a solution. I know there's programs here you can go research with these guys, and there's some merit to some of it. There's some pretty good merit to some of it. I just don't know that I agree. You can't put this out here as a criticism and not have a solution along with it right here. It doesn't make sense to me. It's just not good, guys. It just doesn't sound good to me. It doesn't sit well.
Issues. And so I think if we can get rid of that aspect, we can then focus on other things. We can be more selfless, focus on others more, find opportunities where we can help others because we're not so focused and dialed in on our own money problems. So that's my encouragement to you guys. Take it as you will. That's TikTok for you.
All right. So what did we learn today? On TikTok, there's things on there that we don't agree with that are about personal finances. Now, here's a couple things to think about on this. And I want to make this clear. First, there was no answer on how to create money. So we're going to assume to pay off the loan. So we're going to make an assumption that we're all just going to have that extra $1,000 to pay the mortgage off early or to invest either or on this. But let's do the math on this. And I'm going to do a quick tidbit because this is something we could spend a lot of time on another time and really break it down and have charts and graphs and all sorts of things. An amortization of a home does not work like a normal car or any other type of loan that is a short-term loan. The amortization schedule is hard to say as well as hard to understand. It's preset. It's front-loaded on the interest. You can't pay your mortgage ahead like a car. If you put $1,000 on a car principal, you won't have a payment due. Like let's say your payment's due the first of this coming month, and you make the payment, you put an extra $1,000 on there, and you've got a $500 payment. That puts you ahead 2 months. You don't have a payment for 2 months. Pretty good stuff, right? Did you know a mortgage doesn't work like that? You can't pay ahead a mortgage. So here's how this really works. And we're going to tie a bow tie while we're talking about this. Helps me concentrate. Everyone wants to know how I do this. So I'm going to do it while we're talking here. But you put that extra $1,000 on a mortgage. What do you think happens to that? Your payment doesn't pay ahead. Where does that money go? You know where it goes? To the back of the mortgage. Now, we're talking about how long of a time frame here? 30 years, right? Okay, so you're putting $30 at the end of a 30-year note. Now, as you do that, it does cut the time off. And here's what she said. That oh, you like that, by the way? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about right now. That's what I'm talking about. So you put it on the end, and she said you do $1,000 a month. It will knock that sucker off, you know, in 13 years on a $300,000 note. Who knows what rate she was doing? We'll just go with that math, though. Okay, 13 years. That's fine. So $1,000, that's $12,000 a year. Okay, $12,000 a year. That's $120,000 over 10 years. All right, pretty good. I like it. The math is mathing there. Now, 120 over 10, you know, and if you just pay the thing off, plus into 3 years, 12 is 36, so it's about $156,000 extra going on to the note over that time frame. So you basically paid $156,000 in interest, but you're cutting off the next 15 years of about 156 an extra 2 years, so about 180. Let's math it out. $180,000 of interest that you just saved. Beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. And then you have whatever the principal and interest was on that bad boy that you can invest for the rest of your life. Now, think about this, though. Now, I'm going to throw a couple statistics out there from financial institutions that are well known. The mainstream investment institutions, financial planning institutions. I'm not talking about independent guys. I'm just talking about the mainstream. There's a number of them that over the last 30 years have a track record of an average return of 10% per year. Now that's being touted as one of their own statistics, 10% per year. So you're going to double about every 8 years, something like that, because of the way it actually compounds when you're investing. Because you earn the 10% the first year, then you take that money. So it'd be, you know, in the first year you're saving 12,000, 10%, 120. So then you have 12,120, and the next year you double that, and so on and so forth. About 8 years, it's going to do that. So over a 13-year period, you would have almost doubled twice, 1 3/4, something to that effect, if you invest money over that same time frame. Now, here's where, again, math and the mathing of it and all of this, you put the money on the end of the note. It's not a bad thing. It's gone. You don't have to worry about it. You can't touch it. So you don't have to worry about being disciplined anymore. Once the money's gone, it's gone. It's paying the house off. That's great. I have no bones to make no bones about it. It's going to do it. I have no controversy with that part of it as far as that's what you're doing. However, what if you did actually give that to someone for the same time frame? Now, I'm not saying to keep your mortgage past when you want to keep it. I'm not saying to keep it past the 13 years. I mean, why? Why would you do that? There's no reason to do that. You want to be house payment free, right? That's the goal on this. Let's keep the goal the same thing, because I'm not saying it's not a bad thing to pay your house off. It's a great thing to pay your house off, because then you don't have to worry about that stuff. But what is the best advantage of that? What's the fastest way you pay your house? With $1,000 or $1,100? Which one's bigger? Which one's going to pay more on the house? So let's think about the investing part of this. And I mean, I'm looking at a hybrid between the two here. In a perfect world scenario, if the investments came out and this and that, well, if you're using a good financial planner, on average, you're going to come up with these kind of percentages. The market's going to turn over that time frame, ups and downs, but that's what they do. That's what they do. Is it possible that it may not turn out exactly the way you want? Yeah. But you have a good financial planner over that time frame, you shouldn't be losing any money. They can put those things over in some safe things. And I'm not going to say any type of investment, but there are investments that are very safe, that don't lose money in a bad market, that actually still gain a small percentage and protect your principal. So you don't have to worry about that. So again, you're always earning interest on that money, which is what makes more money to pay your house off faster. That's the goal, right? Is to pay your house off faster, or at least to accumulate the money to do it. So let's take that $1,000 over 8 years. What are you going to have? That's $12,000 a year. That's $60,000 over 5 years. That's $60,000. Another 3 years, that's $96,000. If my math is mathing correctly, that's $96,000. $96,000 over 8 years. Okay. Now every year that's going to, if the money you put in, the $12,000 is going to double. And the next year, that's going to double, that's going to double, that's going to double. You're not going to be sitting on $200,000 after 8 years, but you're going to be, if you did the math out, you'll be sitting on about $130,000 or so, probably conservatively. That's what you're going to be sitting on because of the principle of doubling that. So at 8 years, let's say you got $130,000 in there. Okay. So let's say you go another 8 years, just to make the math easy. So instead of a 13-year payoff, we're going to pay the house off at 16 years. Not that I want to wait the extra 3 years. I'm just making the math easy. Okay, let's say you got $130,000. Now I'm doing that actual what's added on to the doubling effect on top of my head. So if you wanted to actually check the math, you sure can. But this is a great example, and it's going to be pretty close. I'm pretty good with these numbers. So 130, you're looking at having $260,000 at the end of 16 years. $260,000. Let's see, how much was that again? 156 was the number that we had onto the house to pay it off in 13 years. You now have $260,000. And that's not even assuming that you're putting more money in there that increases it even more. All I did was take the original 8 years and double it. Now remember, you're still putting $1,000 in there for that 8 years. So there's another 96. 260 plus 96 if you earn no interest on that. Think about that. Okay, we're going to leave that math alone because I think you're getting the picture here. At the end of that time frame, not only do you have enough to pay your house off, you have enough to pull out, pay the taxes on that money, and still have a nest egg left over to invest, and you don't have a house payment anymore. So you tell me which is better. Again, get a hold of me. I look at this more like a financial person than a loan officer. I'm a loan officer. This is what I do for a living. I run numbers for a living. I'd be negligent not to at least present the facts about this. I'm sorry, dude. I mean, that TikTok with the girl is off the rails completely, because you don't want to carry the debt any further than you have to if your goal is to pay it off. Why? Because then you can have more money to invest, right? And you're looking at, well, wait a second, I have all that money and I can double it. Yeah. But the stress of having a house payment, I agree with that. It's better just not to have the dang house payment. Why though would you cut yourself short of investing that and at least having a little bit? Now, like I said, the 260 wasn't even including the next 8 years of money of $1,000 a month you're putting into that thing to invest, to save, to double, to do all that stuff with. So that's a very conservative, very, very, very conservative projection of that. So when you're talking about this, What's the controversy on paying off the house? Pay the dang house off. The controversy is how. Make money work for you. Leverage those dollars. Get with a good financial planner that you're going to want them anyway. Even if you agree with him from the Ramsey folks that says, hey, pay your house off and then invest, you still need a good financial planner. So if you've got a financial planner that's got your back, that's really good and doing what they should do, working for you, they're going to keep your money safe. They're going to put it in things that are going to make money. They're going to get a good return. But even if it's a conservative return, we did some conservative stuff here. Because again, over 10 years, you have 120. Over 13 years, you got 156 just sitting there. We actually extended another 3 years for another 36,000. So you're looking at, what is that, 180, 192, if my math is correct. And so you know that time frame, just in saving alone, you have almost $200,000. But what if you just double the first amount? Good Lord. Any way you slice it, we're not talking about going from 1.1 to 1.4. We're talking about going from 150 grand, 160 grand to having over 350,000. So you're talking about a huge difference there for when you really need it and really want it to count with your investment portfolio when you're done paying the house off. And then if you've grown, your family's grown, you're going to buy a different house anyway. If you got that money tied up in the house, it didn't do anything for you. Now did it? Did a dang thing for you. Just cut time off the back. You could have that stuff being invested and sell your house, take that equity that you had in the house to go to the next one, and you're still growing that money to $1,000 a month, that you're putting into the investment portfolio, and you still have that available so that when you're finished buying homes, you can pay off your dang house. Just throwing it out there, guys. It's a great controversy. Talk about paying off the house. I'd love to hear your comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. You're going to agree. You're going to disagree. It's fine. The math is mathing here. You get a good financial planner in there, and I'll bet you they'll say, man, we'd love to pay your house off. Here, let's look at a couple ways that we could potentially do that that's going to benefit you. I think they're going to come up with some ways that similar to what I'm talking about, honestly, because I just can't see why I would leave my money sitting on a house for 13 years doing nothing for me, when I could even put it in a high yield savings account and have more left to pay the house off quicker, or at least have some money left over by the time I'm done and make it work for me. Again, talk to me. Candace Lowman here. If you want to see me, my information's at the bottom, and I'll look forward to chatting with you, and I can help you buy a home. Talk to you soon. Hey, if you enjoyed today's video, you're going to enjoy the next one's coming too. Click here.